Hi, I'm Bill Kim, and
Hi, I'm Isaac.
we are here to talk about the subject of moral decay during the Roaring Twenties. The 1920s was an era of progressive American culture and mass consumerism, where extravagant displays of wealth were heavily sought after, a time where crime and gangsterism was deeply rooted into society. Catherine Machinsky writes in her thesis that F. Scott Fitzgerald strove to use real-life friends, underworld characters, and crimes to illustrate a culture in crisis due to a generation lost, not just from their parents, but also each other and themselves. Fitzgerald does indeed do this by connecting the events of the Roaring Twenties to the Great Gatsby, utilizing literary techniques and rhetorical devices to criticize American society through the eyes of Nick Carraway. He pulls inspiration from his own life and the life of those around him to judge the morality of his peers.
The rise of consumer culture and materialism came with the rise of the stock market. The ability to spend money without having to worry about making a dent in one's bank account was a large point in the book. Gatsby was able to purchase a mansion and host extravagant parties every week. This leads to the concept of love. He hosted all of these parties with the hope to lure in Daisy and be reunited with her, to marry her like he promised all those years ago. Roger Lathbury writes in Money, Love, and Aspiration in The Great Gatsby that he, Gatsby, projects at the price of Navit. He is completely innocent of the limits of what money can do, a man who, we feel, would believe every word of an advertisement. Asserting that Gatsby was able to get closer to Daisy at the price of his own free will. Daisy then supports this idea by calling him an advertisement of a man on page 126. She saw Gatsby differently because of the change in his wallet, rather than the change in his character. Gatsby was not concerned with Daisy's position in life. Rather, he was only focused on how to keep Daisy with him, and even divorce her husband, Tom Buchanan. Machkinsky writes, he, Gatsby, is in essence an anachronism, doomed in his own world by his desire to remain in the past. Realizing this, Tom feels threatened by anyone who dreams to climb the social ladder, further projecting the conflict between Tom and Daisy's marriage and Gatsby's self-interest. Despite this, Daisy and Tom already have a tumultuous relationship, mostly because she did not love him when she married him, and also because she suspects him of cheating on her with another woman. And in another part of the book, George Wilson discovers Myrtle's affair. These instances of adultery are the main points in the book where moral decay comes into place, and it allows Machikinsky to argue that often readers place the focus of adultery on Tom and Myrtle as the culprits, while Daisy and Wilson are the sad victims, but Daisy too commits the moral crime of adultery. Although not explicitly stated, Nick expressed his disgust towards these actions by criticizing them despite being told to reserve all judgments. Daisy's hesitancy to leave Tom for Gatsby shows her slight wariness about Gatsby. The constant downward slope of the story comes to an end when Daisy eventually accidentally hits Myrtle Wilson in the street and kills her. Although accidental, it is the ultimate crime in life. Tom's lack of accountability denotes his lack of moral empathy. Gatsby's obsession with Daisy causes moral corruption and leads to his downfall. And the rest of the accomplices, Nick and Jordan, are just as guilty, leaving Wilson a victim of selfish affluence. The death in the story was not just the death of Myrtle, George, and Gatsby, it is the death between love, between Jay and Daisy. It is the death of Tom and Daisy's marriage. It is the death of morality. Nick does the best job summarizing the characteristics of his peers by saying, quote, "They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was keeping them together. The affluence of Daisy, Tom, and even Gatsby absolved them all of crimes. Nick became corrupt because of the environment he is in. Him being non-interventionist made him complicit with the crimes committed by his peers. Nick chose not to do anything to potentially solve this issue because he was finally friends with affluent people, cousin to a woman stuck in loveless marriage who had to resort to an affair as well, and friends with the man he went to college with. Nick signifies the bridge between the older, simpler, more naive, idealistic America and bewildering, desperate, ruthless, cynical America of the Roaring Twenties. As Catherine Machinsky sums it up, we become just as complicit in the crime because just like Nick, we look on and do nothing. But this time, we are just as lucky as the old money, for we do not have to suffer consequences for any crimes committed. Like all surviving characters, we were able to float on.